Okay, so we're gonna look at how do we filter our blood. So we're gonna clean it up, and how from that do we make urine. So here we're looking at the structures involved in this. So the things that are in this orange color, and set up a second. The things that are in the orange color are gonna be the nephron. The nephron is our the functional unit of our urinary system. It's found in your kidneys. It's between the renal cortex and the renal pyramids. Kind of is between both of those. It straddles it. So the entire point of the nephron, it's kind of like the collecting place for the waste and the place where it gets filtered. So what happens is we have to get blood to each nephron. So here you can see we've got from the renal artery. So all that is saying is if we look here, well, maybe not so much here, but that's okay. So the renal artery, if we're remembering the setup, we've got an aorta, the descending aorta, and then it branches off and it goes to our kidney, right? So this here is that renal artery, and it's coming off from this. Sorry, this is our descending aorta. Okay, sorry about the handwriting. So the renal artery, the blood comes from the renal artery, goes in, sorry, comes from the descending aorta, goes into this renal artery. The renal artery, it's going to branch, but basically we're going to send that blood all the way back to this renal cortex. And at the renal cortex, that's where we find this structure. So we have the part of the nephron here is called Bowman's capsule. Okay, so Bowman's capsule is connected, it's part of the nephron, so it's this little cup-like thing right here, and it turns into the loop of Henle, which I'm drawing on right now. So what happens, Bowman's capsule is like a little cup, and inside that cup is the glomerulus. It's basically a ball of arteries. So the blood that came from the heart, okay, comes down this descending aorta, goes into the renal artery, gets pumped to the back of the kidneys here, and that's where it meets up with the nephron. Okay, so the blood comes into the nephron. There's this ball, just imagine like a big ball of string, but it's actually capillaries, that's held within Bowman's capsule. Okay, so what happens there is that waste and all kinds of other things are taken out. So it unselectively removes all of the junk plus things, right? We're going to toss out a bunch of stuff. So right here, this glomerulus, this is part of your circulatory system. It's capillaries. So think really tiny little arteries. And anything that's small basically gets pulled out of your blood. So it's going to pull out salts and sugars and tons of water and ions, electrolytes, all of those things get tossed out. Okay, so now all of that, we can call it filtrate at this point, gets pulled out and it drains into the loop of Henle. Okay, so this is just filtrate. There's no blood here. This is just filtrate. So filtrate is like a bunch of urine plus extra stuff. Okay, but we pulled out too much. Okay, so this is full of stuff that your body actually needs in this loop of Henle. So what happens is our circulatory system comes back into play. Okay, so we tossed out a bunch of stuff into the nephron, into the Bowman's capsule and the loop of Henle. So we need to get it back. Okay, so blood comes in to Bowman's capsule, hangs out in this glomerulus, tosses a bunch of stuff out. Then the blood leaves Bowman's capsule and it comes back and it starts going around the loop of Henle. So just imagine like it's moving, the blood is like all looped through and around the loop of Henle. And what's happening there is we're pulling out things we need. So I'll just change my color here a second. So we tossed out too much, right? So we tossed out sugars, we tossed out ions, we tossed out a bunch of water, and we rebalance it in the loop of Henle. So the loop of Henle has all that filtrate in it. These arterioles is what we call them, are looped around the loop of Henle. They're wrapped around it. So we have afferent ones first. Okay, still heading away from the heart. See the arrows? And then they turn into efferent arterioles. They're all arterioles, though they're still doing the same thing. So what they're doing is they're reclaiming ions and sugars and water. They're pulling back things that they tossed out that they were like, actually, we need that back. We need to balance things out. We need to get the blood back to homeostasis. So your kidneys are in charge of keeping like your blood's pH levels in check. They're in charge of blood pressure. So they have to keep the water levels in your blood in the correct amounts. So it's that homeostasis piece of like it's pulling back, it's saying, oops, I tossed that out, I actually want it back. So it's going to diffuse back into the circulatory system, into these arterioles. Okay, so once again, we're going to take what we threw out, that filtrate, and we're going to actually take back the things that we threw out by mistake. So then by the time it's gone all the way, the filtrates travel all the way through this loop of Henle. By the time it's gone all the way through it, by the time we get over here, we just have urine. Okay, so we have all just waste. Hopefully, right? As long as you're healthy. So we should just have the things your body doesn't want anymore. Okay, so then your urine is going to take a path. It's going to go from your nephron, your loop of Henle, it's going to go into the renal pelvis, and then into the ureter, and then into the urinary bladder, past the urethral sphincter, out through the urethra, and then we eliminate it. So urine, it's all waste. We don't need any of it anymore. The blood, remember, it took back up the things that it needed in these afferent and efferent arterioles, and it's going to make its way back to the renal vein. Okay, so if we're back here, the renal vein, I'll have in blue, is leaving the kidney. Okay, and we're going to hook up to our inferior vena cava here, so it's connected. Okay, and blood is going back to the heart through this inferior vena cava. And that blood that's going back, it's all clean. So we've cleaned it out. We probably used up most of the oxygen. That's okay. It's going to head back to the heart, get reoxygenated, and then get looped out again.